Salutations, fellow monkeys! Today we're talking about Black Men Ping Pong. I mean, Black Myth Wukong. I've been having a lot of fun screaming my lungs off whenever I land a heavy attack. It's pretty fun, but what really got me was the bosses. The bosses in this game are great. There's roughly 100 of them, and yet I have failed to see more than a handful that's overall bad. Which means it's been a real challenge finding only 10 for this list. You read the title, you know what I'm here for, so let's talk about my top 10 favorite boss fights in Black Myth Wukong. And of course, I hope you enjoy. At number 10 is Captain Wise Voice. I can already hear the disdain from some of you. I know that the community has already crowned this boss as the black sheep of the family. Not many people like this guy because his chicken legs aren't exactly great hitboxes, I get it. Personally, I never had this issue. It only took me 2 tries, and I was pretty close on my first one. Now, if this list was based on design alone, he would probably be in the top 5. I love the giant bell head, its weird proportions. It kinda reminds me of Bloodborne. Captain Wise Voice is the final boss before escaping the Pagoda Realm. This region is kinda lame, not gonna lie, because periodically your health will be cut in half due to the sound of this giant bell. Guess who's controlling it? Yep, Captain Wise Voice. And during the fight, he will not be shy on using this ability to drain your health. Most bosses you just kinda bonk away at, and that's great. A lot of them are on this list, but Wise Voice is a bit different. You really won't do too much damage to his legs, but what you'll notice is that one of them seems to be weaker than the rest. After enough damage, he'll stagger back, falling down, allowing for an easy beatdown on his bell head. Now this is where you can do some real damage. And I can't tell you how satisfying it is to land a heavy attack here. It is literal music to my ears. He'll start to use some magic as the fight continues, eventually triggering his second phase transition. I've noticed that many bosses in this game are immune during their phase transitions, which makes total sense by the way, I get it. With how powerful we can be, we could easily shave off half their health bar before they're done transforming. We play by Dragon Ball Z rules. We let them transform, then we fight. Now during his transition, he'll spew lightning around the arena, which you can easily dodge by taking a strategic stroll around. And finally, he'll cut lines on the ground, showing you where basically not to step. It's neat, you know, I like it. This dude can also shoot laser beams of lightning, which I don't know how that wouldn't be cool. He's a fair fight that's decently balanced. Again, I never had any issues with him, but I do recognize that he can be annoying for some. Just not me because, you know, I'm actually good at the game. At number 9 is Yellowbrow. Yellowbrow is the definition of a boss that wants to be something more than he actually is. Which doesn't really matter to me because overall he's an excellent boss. Yellowbrow is probably one of the longest fights in the game, around 20 minutes in total. There's the first phase, which kind of gets you to the rhythm of this dance, and then you fight the Makapupu chief for the 30th time inside his sack, and then you fight him again inside this like miniature dollhouse of murder. Don't ask me why, I can't really explain it. I'm here to talk about the third phase primarily because it's by far the most difficult part. This game is definitely difficult, okay? Out of the 100 bosses in this game, I would say a decent handful took me more than a few tries. Yellowbrow was one of them, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yellowbrow's main weapon is this lightning mace that can extend its range on will. It will leave traces of lightning on the ground, cast rings that you must jump over, or if he's feeling extra, just nuke half the arena. He can also transform into a golden statue, making light attacks utterly useless. Now what you need to do is rock him hard with a heavy attack. A fully charged one should do the trick. It may seem annoying, but from my experience, he uses these abilities in moderation and provides enough time to counter when needed. You can easily run away from his nuke or sneak into heavy attack while he's gloating in the corner. It's really not that bad. However, his greatest trick is turning your clones against you. I have never panicked more hard when suddenly I'm the one being ganged up on by my own blood. He's a great boss though. You know, I saw the progression in myself when I was fighting him. I got better and better, but he still kicked my butt when I got too cocky. Gorguinni approves though, wannabe Buddha man. At number 8 is Yin Tiger. After completing Chen Luong's quest line, he'll teleport you into the Painted World. Not that one, this one, where it's basically like your new hub area. All previous NPCs that provided upgrades will migrate here for easy access. You also meet a new friend in the form of a giant humanoid tiger. At first I thought he was only the blacksmith, but then I saw the challenge button. Of course, I salivated at the potential sight of a new boss fight. I've seen people say he's one of the hardest bosses in the entire game, and yeah. Yin Tiger hits hard and has long delayed mix-ups that put even Margit to shame. It's not enough for this game that he's a tiger with a sword though. He's a tiger with a sword that can teleport. He challenges your timing and parry skills immensely. What you've learned up until this point matters greatly. I love bosses that you can find too early. Yin Tiger is one of them if you ask me. Now I found him a bit later in my journey, but still, he gave me a good beating before I mastered his moveset. He's like the Nameless King from Dark Souls 3, a difficult, optional boss that left a great impression. The first major bosses are some of the most important. Whatever quality they are sets the standard for the rest of the game, which is why I'm happy to announce that the giant werewolf, Werewolf Boy, was an excellent boss. You know, he's a rather simple creature. Long telegraphed wind-ups, decent combos, but nothing too crazy for your first major encounter. However, unlike most bosses, he does interact with the environment. He can hop on the roof for extra intimidation points before pouncing on the player. You're not going to see flashy plays here, folks. It's as simple as can be. Even then, he sets the tone beautifully for the rest of Myth Wukong. You get a good feel for the combat flow. It's not too easy where he's a pushover, but not overly challenging to push away new players. I do wish though he was a bit more difficult personally, because the previous mini-bosses were much tougher. Kind of feels like a reset in difficulty. But also, who doesn't enjoy fighting giant werewolves? Honestly, I try my best to explain why I like a boss for these type of videos, but that's really it. He's a good introduction boss that set the bar high for me. One of the most difficult fights in the game, the Bashui Golden-Eyed Beast takes the number 6 spot. Let me start with my main issue here. So, a part of the arena is covered in molten lava, draining your health fast enough where it becomes an issue. You can easily take the fight away from that spot, but his grab attack will automatically launch you towards the center of it. You either die from the grab, die from the lava because you can't walk off in time, die from the fire element, or die from his next attack after trying to get rid of the fire. You're put into a corner instantaneously from one attack. You could be kicking his tail, but as soon as he grabs you, you're dangling from the ropes. I'm just not a fan of it personally, but everything else about him is great. I like frogs, and his face kinda reminds me of one. On a real note, he's one of my favorite design bosses in the game too. That's number 1. Number 2, he is a very engaging boss fight. After venturing through the secret area, Bashui Cave, you'll find him at the end of it. His demeanor is that of a gorilla with the horns of a bull and the attitude of the flame lurker from Demon Souls. Fire is this guy's plaything. He'll fling it at you, leave trails on the ground, combust the ground with it, and more. This is also a very long fight. On my successful attempt, it took me almost, I would say, 4 minutes. For some reason, it felt like 10. He was the first boss in this game that made me rethink adding more defense. And now when it comes to these type of games and where I pour stats, I'm just a glass cannon, man. That's how I roll. I enjoyed learning the boss's attack patterns more than most, which is why it's on this list. I learned quickly with him because I think my instinctive playstyle works best with him. I'm sure some of you who are watching who have defeated this boss, it took you a few tries. Me too, but it was under 10, so it wasn't too bad. I love how with all the bosses in this game, they try something a bit different with each one. With the Bashui Beast, positioning is an important detail, more so than most boss fights. You know, because of all the flaming trails he leaves, you don't want to be overly aggressive because you'll burn out faster than the damage you can dish out. I also love bosses that have you play smart, but still allow optimal aggression. The Bashui Beast is like that for me. What a phenomenal boss that you find at the end of this secret area. There are multiple secret hidden bosses in Myth Wukong. Some of my favorites are the varied colored Luongs. And if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, by the way, I don't care. You'll encounter them behind natural barriers, only revealed through a key item, the Luong Scales. Black Luong almost made it on this list because I love his design and fight, but if I'm being honest and typical, my favorite was the most difficult, Yellow Luong. Now, much like Yin Tiger, he wasn't as difficult for me as some others may proclaim. You can encounter him as early as chapter 4. If you immediately go to him, you will suffer. It's like those mobile ads where the brain dead user goes towards the obviously higher number. I went back to him when I was halfway through chapter 5, so I was a bit stronger, but he still provided a good challenge. I adore the flow of this fight. Unlike his dragon brethren, he's more humanoid, which means he fights with more grace. Lightning is his main form of damage, and it's brutal. I haven't mentioned it yet, but lightning in this game makes you take more damage. It's crazy. With that in mind, I decided to really test the counter heavy attack with the smash stance. This was the first fight that I mastered the resolute strike, and it was satisfying to land every single time. Didn't last long though, because once he's down to half health, he enters a berserker state. Although it's kind of wonky, I will say. Like, on my first attempt, he didn't activate it until he was almost dead. Other times, he would activate it above half health. I'm not sure, but regardless, it was a devastating second phase. He floats now, because why not? He'll perform sudden slams of lightning that can easily kill you if you're not prepared for it. Each one instantly afflicts you with lightning ailment, pretty much, and it's kind of game over from there. I feel like the only reason I won so quickly was because on my successful attempt, he didn't transition until he was almost dead. I mean, I'll take it. This boss is no laughing matter. I've heard some people say he's just as hard as Melania from Elden Ring, which, I mean, no. Still, he provided an excellent challenge and was a great conclusion to this list of secret bosses. You also get to use his transformation, which is pretty cool. Not gonna lie, I hated Red Boy. Not hated, hate's a strong word. More like disinterested. He didn't really stand out to me. Wasn't anything special. I've seen fire before. I've seen boys before. That sounded wrong. But then he decides to juice up by swallowing one of the 5 relics and transforms into a literal demon. The Yaka King is no joke. For every attempt made, he gives you a few seconds to start before he reloads his arm blades. After that, it's fair game. He's like a Gallade on crack that made a deal with the devil. Fast is an understatement. The amount of pressure this boss puts on you is one of the best in the entire game. His flurry of blows will keep you on your toes throughout the whole fight, and I love that. Some combos have delays, others don't. I really had to memorize specific attacks in order to dodge them. With some bosses, you can easily create distance for a quick breather, but the Yaka King doesn't really like that. Either way, aggression is the key to this fight. Once he reaches half health, he'll extend his arm blades to perform this ridiculous combo. For the longest time, I could not figure out the timing for this attack. Some swings were faster, others had an insane delay that caught me off guard almost every single time. Eventually I mastered it, and it didn't even matter because then he could perform it at any time in the second phase. I figured I might as well use Yin Tiger to parry most of the combo. I didn't care about the damage, I just cared about surviving. He also has giant AoEs that are pretty cool looking. Just thought I'd put that out there. I think they look great. I think what I like most about this boss is his sheer intensity. This fight is an adrenaline rush the moment it begins, and it doesn't feel like a chore, rather a skill check. It's a phenomenal fight that tests your skills to the max. When a boss has a surprise WWE tag team, that being me and the Scorpion Lord, you know it's gonna be good. Too bad that the Scorpion Lord died and I didn't even get to fight him at all, so I mean that kinda sucks. The Dusk Veil takes the bronze medal, and for good reason too. At the end of this secret area, Purple Cloud Mountain, you'll find this boss worthy of being in a Bloodborne sequel. At first, he doesn't seem like much. He's like a baby chicken with his head cut off and a bull skull Frankenstein onto his head. Gold trinkets decorate his head, indicating some religious aspect. He fights exactly how I described him, a chicken and a bull. It's chaotic, sporadic, the definition of enigmatic. But of course, that's not enough for this game. He also conjures up a sword throughout the entire encounter. Nothing too crazy, I guess, except when the second phase kicks in, the entire world starts to end. The arena is saturated with a red blood, with a blood red, and the Dusk Veil unleashes his full potential. With but the sound of his cries, he can rain blood from the sky or swarm you with 1,000 razor-sharp feathers. This fight is crazy intense. It's not nearly the most difficult on this list, but definitely one of the most fun. See, it's not all about difficulty, friends. It's about learning, adapting, and the fight still being fun even when you know what you're doing. That feeling of progression is only matched by the Soul series, and even then, Black Myth gives it a run for its money. I think the Dusk Veil is one of the best examples in the game. Everyone's experience is different. Actually, it's vastly different. I've seen so many different perspectives, but anyways, for me, this boss was such a joy to learn and counter. Now, I have heard people actually dislike this guy because of his hitbox. The legs can be difficult to swing at from time to time, but I haven't grown any gray hairs here, so I'm chilling. But overall, I think he's not only an excellent fight, but my favorite designed boss in the game. The Blood Moon and Rain is a nice touch too. Almost every other boss on this list has some sort of significance story-wise. Some are the finale before the end of a chapter, others are one of the first major walls you'll face, or even the conclusion to a completely optional quest. Not this one though. The Supreme Inspector was a surprise favorite of mine. I loved this boss, and he deserves the silver medal on this list. Besides the #1 spot, this guy was my toughest encounter yet. He's the first boss you'll face in the final chapter, which means he'll pull all the big guns to make sure you hate yourself at the end of it. Lightning, fire, golden wings for your weapon to bounce on, insane combos with very delayed patterns, AoEs, and more. I appreciate that he doesn't come out the gate with everything though. There's a progression of challenge that's more noticeable here than most boss fights. that truly make this encounter special. I also like with certain attacks that he starts to do like gang signs with his hand head. Like that's pretty cool. Once you do a decent chunk, then he starts to use some lightning. And it's not just regular lightning, no sir, it's red, so you know it's gonna pack a punch. Some previous attacks like his Feather Storm now cause lightning to strike down, so now there's an added element that you have to be wary of. Oh, but compadres, the fun doesn't stop there. Once he reaches half health, he decides to whip out his ultimate weapon, a flaming unicycle. I freaking love this game. I love how creative this boss just is. I have never fought a boss before that does drive-bys mid-fight, and I gotta say, I'm here for it. Now on top of the lightning ailment, his unicycle deals fire damage. And the way he uses his weapon is so cool. He'll flip it around, perform some sick grind rails on the monkey Tony Hawk style, or create copies that hone in on the player. There's such a unique rhythm to this fight that I couldn't help but admire. And if you think that's the end to it, guess again. The final showdown. He'll entrap you in the ring of fire. Less mobility for me means more sick kickflips for him. He also uses twin swords of lightning at this point for some quick combos to chip away at your health. Then the unicycle usually finishes the job. I just love this boss, man, what can I say? He's an insane challenge that doesn't feel unfair. He has all the elements and attributes of most bosses you've faced up until this point. This boss really tested all that I had to learn up until this point, and the total of 2 hours it took me to beat him. Not once was I annoyed by him. Very close, but I think the number one choice is quite clear. I mean, come on, this was obvious. You really think I would make a top 10 list about a game that tells the story of Sun Wukong and not have him be number one? To be fair, if this fight sucked, he wouldn't be here, but I'm so glad that he was a marvelous conclusion. Now, for the record, I know there's a true secret ending when you fight the first boss again on fair ground, then the 4 kings, blah 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 blah. Listen, I didn't get that, and I don't care to get it. So put on your big boy pants, and let's move on. Also, for the sake of not saying a mouthful each time, I'm just gonna address him as Sun Wukong, okay? I have never met a boss in my entire career that has embarrassed me more than this guy. The amount of trickery and unseriousness this boss has is something very special. Almost every boss I have faced tries to intimidate you or is in some shape or form serious. Sun Wukong is just playing with you the whole time. He can immobilize you, and instead of taking advantage of it, he's just standing there, menacingly. Sometimes he can catch you mid-heal and steal your gore to heal for himself. That is on par with Melania healing per hit in terms of ridiculousness. Honestly, Sun Wukong is even more so. The fact that I started to get PTSD from healing in this game says a lot about how little control I had over this fight. Even without his moments of tomfoolery, this boss is insanely difficult. It challenges your pure, raw skills in Black Myth Wukong. You really can't take advantage of him in any way. Which doesn't seem fair because before the second phase, you're ripped of all the relics you've gained on your journey and crippled significantly. With each relic you've collected, you can choose one of 3 buffs. Before this fight, you had access to all of Sun Wukong's previous skills and power. You even had a different stance form, representative of the tutorial boss in the game. However, this great sage's broken shell will giga drain all of that and make this fight 10 times harder. The first phase is actually really no issue. You deal enough damage to be cocky yourself. Second phase, it is a sheer grind. Sun Wukong, of course, uses all the spells we have in our inventory. He's just better at it. His Rocksteady comes out mid-combo, making it extremely difficult not to hit sometimes. I have been the victim of this combo animation too many times. Yet again, he taunts you by kicking your staff and telling you to get up. Freaking, he even eats an apple mid-fight. Who does that? I love it. The level of unbothered here is quite admirable. For us, this is the hardest boss in the game, the finale. For him, this is just another Tuesday. I love how Sun Wukong's personality is shown through this fight. It makes it personal. The flow of this fight is beautiful, the choreography, masterful. The back and forth action between me and this boss is unmatched. I've always loved bosses that are essentially a stronger version of you. It makes the pacing feel fast, focused, and purposeful. This fight took me a few hours before I finally put down the Great Sage. What I felt was relief, and yet empty that it was over. That's how I know this was a great boss. Definitely my favorite fight in this game, and actually probably one of my favorite fights in gaming in general. And that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed, and please feel free to leave your own list down below. I would love to read your comments about, hey, I disagree with your list, you sad Egyptian boy. Like let me know what you think. I would love to hear about that. But at the time of recording this, it is September 5th. September 9th, Warhammer comes out, and I'm very excited for that. So expect videos on that. I might do a couple more videos on Black Myth Wukong. I almost want to compare it to Elden Ring, even though it's not really the same game. But anyways, let me know what you guys want to see. And of course, if you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and to subscribe for more content like this. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone, and of course, stay safe.